We are on Lesson 6.2 Rates, page 155. The essential question is, how do you use rates to compare quantities? Starts off with an Explorer activity. Let's read together about rates. Using rates to compare prices. A rate is a comparison of two quantities that have different units. Chris drove 107 miles in 2 hours. This can be expressed as the rate shown at the right. Notice that the units are different, miles and hours. The rate is 107 miles in 2 hours. Now, if we just had two numbers, like 107 and 2, that would technically be a ratio. But when we include different units, like miles and hours, then this is when it becomes a rate. So we are moving on to the grocery store comparison problem. Let's read it together, talk about what you're supposed to do. You'll pause the video, and you'll resume the video when you're ready to check answers. Shayna is at the grocery store comparing two brands of juice. Brand A costs $3.84 for a 16-ounce bottle. Brand B costs $4.50 for a 25-ounce bottle. And I'm going to point those numbers out to you in the tables. Brand A is $3.84 for 16 ounces. Brand B is $4.50 for 25 ounces. To compare the costs, Shayna must compare prices for equal amounts of juice. How can she do this? Now, to be clear about what this question is saying is, right now it's not fair to compare brand B to brand A. If you compared brand B to brand A, if you thought, well, brand A is a better deal because it's only $3.84, look, brand B here is $4.50. Well, that's not a fair comparison because brand B is $4.50, but it's 25 ounces. So it's not fair to compare two different brands if they have different prices and different ounces. So the strategy here is on question A. Well, the question reads, how can she do this? Question A says, complete the tables. The strategy here is to divide until you get down to 1 ounce. Look at what's happening on, I'm going to use a blue pen here. Look at what's happening on brand A. You start with 16 ounces, and what you should notice is that if you divided 16 by 2, you would get 8 ounces. And if you divided that by 2, you'd get 4 ounces. And if you divided that by 2, you'd get 2 ounces. And if you divided that by 2, you'd get 1 ounce. You could figure out the price. I don't know what this is yet, but you could figure out the price for 1 ounce. Now check out brand B. Now we're not going to try the same strategy here because if we tried to divide 25 by 2, we'd get 12.5. So instead of dividing brand B by 2, we're going to divide by 5. 25 divided by 5 would be 5, and 5 divided by 5 would be 1. And that's the same thing. We'd figure out the price here for 1 ounce. So go ahead and take a minute to complete those tables, and then we can compare the price for 1 ounce of each. Please pause the video and resume it when you're ready to check answers. Okay, I am going to grab a whiteboard here, and I'm going to do some speed division. We have practiced dividing decimals quite a few times. If you're not clear about what I'm doing here, you'll want to go back and review Module 5, Lesson 4, Division of Decimals. So I don't need to divide 384 by 2 because I already get that. I don't need to divide 190. I do need to divide $1.92 by 2 because notice what's happening. In fact, I put my whiteboard over my deal here. If you're wondering why we're dividing by 2, I'll go back to what we started with. We started with 16 ounces and we divide that by 2. And in the last lesson, we said that if you divide one term of a ratio or a rate by 2, you need to divide the other term by 2. So just a minute ago when we pointed out that you're dividing all those by 2, we're going to do the same thing with all these. We're going to divide 192 by 2 to get that term right there. And like I just said, I'm going to do some speed division. I'm pretty much not even going to worry about the decimals. I'm just going to envision 2 goes into 19 9 times. 9 times 2 is 18. Subtract and get 1, bring down 2. 2 goes into 12 6 times. And I'm done. Decimal goes straight up. The answer is 0.96. And that's dollars. I don't need my dollar sign though because it's up in the table. Now I need to divide 96 by 2. And I could do this mentally, and perhaps you could too. But I'll just do it real quick. And watch how I don't actually really even need a decimal. 2 goes into 9 4 times. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 goes into 16 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16. And if I were to put my decimal in the 96 cents, it would go here, and then it goes straight up, so it's 48 cents. And I'm just going to do this one mentally. I can take 48 and divide by 2, it would be 24. And let's remind ourselves what we just calculated. We just calculated the price for 1 ounce of brand A. So I can actually go down to my question B. It says brand A costs blank per ounce. I'm going to write that as 0 and 24 hundredths. That's 24 cents. Now I am going to move my whiteboard, and I've got some different division to do. I'm going to move it down just a little bit. And I need to not divide 450 by 2, because notice we're dividing these terms by 5. Its partner, 25 ounces, was divided by 5. So we're going to divide 450 by 5. And you might be able to do that mentally too. 450 by 5. 5 goes into 45 9 times. Evenly. 5 goes into 0 0 times. Decimal goes straight up. It's 90 cents. For 5 ounces is 90 cents. Now I need to divide 90 by 5, and I could use a multiplication chart to figure out that 5 goes into 90 18 times, so that makes it 18 cents. And again, what did I just figure out? I figured out that 1 ounce of brand B costs 18 cents. So I can go down to question B. And from the left it says brand A costs 24 cents per ounce, brand B costs 18 cents per ounce. Question C says which brand is the better buy and why? Well, assuming that the quality of the brands are equal, and we're only using price to determine this answer, the better buy is brand B. And it asks why, and we can simply use a math term here. B, because 0 and 18 hundredths is less than 0 and 24 hundredths. And so it's a better price. Okay, let's go ahead and read question 1 real quick and talk about a strategy there. Question 1 reads, describe another method to compare the costs. For example, when we do problems like this in the future, it might not be effective to set up a table like that. That it does work, it just maybe isn't so quick. So what would be a different way to do that? Well, we've talked about this a little bit before. I'm going to show a little bit of work on my whiteboard. I'm going to move this up just a little bit, make sure I have plenty of room for my whiteboard. So if you go back up to the table, let's kind of pretend that we didn't have that table. Let's just pretend we only had the sentences at the top that states that with brand A, it was $3.84 for 16 ounces. Or a different way to write that would actually even be more mathematical, would be to write it as $3.84 for 16 ounces. And I want to remind you that if we set it up like that, then that actually tells us how to divide. The numerator, when we write it as a fraction, the numerator can be the dividend. So watch what happens if I divide $3.84. It's a messy 3, so I'm going to rewrite that so you can. In fact, I'm just going to start. You've seen this. Now I'm going to get rid of all these annotations. You've seen this. Maybe I'll write it real small. For brand A, we've got $3.84 for 16 ounces. And what that means is that we take $3.84, and that's our dividend. And we take 16, and that's our divisor. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the cost by the 16 ounces, and that will tell us the number of ounces. So 16 goes into 38 twice. 2 times 16 is 32. And 8 minus 2 is 6. And bring down this 4. And 16 goes into 64 4 times. 4 times 16 is 64. And we already knew this answer. We figured it out before. But that 0.24 means, what that means here is, it is $0.24 for 1 ounce. So what we're doing here is we're dividing by 16. Watch how this works over on the left here. The reason why we're dividing by 16 is if you divide 16 ounces by 16, you would get 1 ounce, which is what we want. We want to get 1 ounce. And if you divide the second term by 16, you divide the first term by 16. So that's why we would take $3.84 divided by 16. So that would be brand A. We don't need to do brand B again because we've already done that. So here's the point. The question reads, describe another method to compare the costs. The other method would be divide the cost by the number of ounces, by the ounces. And I'm going to include in my answer the visual, which is the dollars over the ounces. And I've described this before. Almost always the money would be the numerator or the dividend, and then the items would be the second term.